Hey folks, up here in New Hampshire, I wanted to talk to you today about shotguns and shotguns for self-defense. Certainly the shotgun is known by many folks to be sort of the quintessential home defense or self-defense firearm, and I think there's a lot of value in that. At the same time, I think there's some considerations that you just want to think about as you're selecting a shotgun, if you're selecting a shotgun for the primary self-defense tool within your home. I've got a few different shotguns out here. I've safety checked all of them. I've got some ammunition here on the side. We're not loading any of the shotguns here. We'll do that at the range in a subsequent video. But what I wanted to start with is just to really kind of go through some very basics. There are different kinds of shotguns, different kinds of shotgun actions. Everything from the pump shotgun, which many people are familiar with, and hear that sound. People say, well, if I just hear, if a burglar hears that sound or a home invader hears this sound, they're going to run away. I think that might be a bit problematic, and we'll talk through that. Also, over and unders. Over and unders, many people say, well, gee, it only holds 2 rounds. Why would I want that for home defense? Well, maybe this is the only gun you own. Maybe you're an active bird hunter or a skeet shooter or something like that, and you just have no interest in owning other firearms. So the over and under may be something to consider. I'll tell you, 2 rounds of 12 gauge shot from over and under, well placed, could certainly do some serious damage and certainly stop a threat if you were in a situation where you're feared for your life. And then, of course, auto-loading shotguns. In this case, this is an 1187 Premier 12 gauge. It actually has the slug barrel on it. This is a really nice, has some nice wood on it, and is primarily a skeet gun, or it was purchased for that. But I use this is really my primary self-defense gun if I went to a shotgun. Now, I'm not saying shotgun is the first gun I'd choose, but depending on where you're living and the purpose of your use of a firearm will primarily indicate what kind of gun you're going to use, how you're going to use it, the kind of ammunition, and we're going to talk through some of that. So to start with, let's talk about pump shotguns. Now, this gun was a Mossberg, or is a Mossberg 500, and it came with the slug barrel that you'll see here and a longer barrel, I believe it's a 24-inch barrel for bird hunting. And I put this gun, and I actually have shot some defensive shotgun classes with this gun as it's set up now, so slug barrel, and it works very well. It's very simple to operate. Obviously, pressing the gun out, bring the round in, fire the round, and it works very well. My challenge in using a pump shotgun is with my hand and arm. I don't have a great ability to really move the action of the shotgun, of a pump shotgun, and therefore I primarily look at an auto-loading shotgun for that. Pros and cons to each. More to go wrong with an auto-loading shotgun, less to deal with a pump shotgun. Advantages with an auto-loading shotgun: you can shoot it faster. In this case, with the gas system of the Remington, you've got far less felt recoil than you do with a pump shotgun, although recoil is really mitigated and managed by the way in which you hold and run the gun. And when we get to the range later in the next video, we'll actually talk about that a little bit. And then finally, this shotgun right here. This is a Ruger Red Label. Bought it for skeet. Really love this gun. It just feels wonderfully comfortable and natural to me. And again, 2 rounds in there. You came up to point, you had to do what you had to do. Those 2 rounds are effective. It's really not quick to reload, but that's not saying it can't be reloaded very quickly. Clint Smith, the noted gun writer and firearms trainer, you watch him when he runs a double barrel shotgun like this, over and under or side by side. He shoots it and reloads it very fast, so it should not be discounted. One thing with the Rugers, and this may not be true of all over and unders, some of these guns are designed so when you close the action, the safety automatically engages. And that's important to note because, again, if you're not familiar with that and then you come up to point and you press your trigger, there's a safety on, and so you need to be aware of that. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that, again, something you need to be aware of and train with, because if you're using a gun that you're not familiar with that has basically a safety that sets itself every time you close the action, you just make sure that you know how to do that so you can get that safety off, God forbid, if you needed to. So all three of these guns, in my opinion, would do a good job from a self-defense standpoint. There is a range, and we'll talk about that later when we get out to the shooting range, in terms of its practical distance. One of the most important things that I would say is that whatever shotgun you're using, you absolutely need to test the ammunition. Now, there's a lot of different thoughts on this. Some people say, well, buckshot's not the only, or is the only thing to use. It's going to put down the threat. I tend to lean within a home defense type situation to some kind of birdshot, frankly, if I have other people in the house that I might be concerned that the buckshot is going through walls, which it will. So if you live in an apartment situation, let's say with other people, then maybe a 7.5 kind of multi-purpose load, 7.5 shot might work, or a 6 might work. Some people like 8s or 9s in terms of that shot, very fine pellets, a lot more pellets. Again, I'm using a shotgun to stop a threat, and usually, most people when shot and receive multiple pellets across their body are less of a threat. Doesn't mean it's a guaranteed stopper, but that can do it. One of the things you want to do, though, is if you're using any kind of birdshot, you want to go out and test it at ranges that you're going to shoot the gun at. So if you have a really long haul, and let's say it's 25 yards long, how is that gun going to pattern with 7.5 shot? How would it pattern with buckshot? Would that pattern hold together? So those are some of the considerations you need to use. If you're using an auto-loading shotgun, auto-loading shotguns may be, and mine certainly is, will not always function with all ammunition, particularly if you have a light, some quote, tactical light load. Sometimes there's not enough pressure in that load to work the gas system within the Remington 1187, and therefore it won't always cycle. So I have a bunch of different rounds here, and we're not going to go through each one, but this is some SWAT buckshot by Estate. We've got some Winchester, double-aught, 9 pellets, Ranger stuff, PMC, low recoil. This is the stuff that with some of the auto-loading guns I've shot and owned doesn't always cycle. Not that it's bad. It's a great one for pump shotgun or an over and under. And then, of course, Cellular Blot, this stuff is good and works. Hornady. So there's just, several different brands. They all work. Certainly, what I practice with when I'm practicing shotguns a lot, I just buy the 25 round boxes of general sport ammunition, 7.5, 8 shot, that you often use for skeet or trap or something like that you used to be able to get at Walmart. Walmart, as I understand it, has stopped selling ammunition for the immediate future. So if you shop at Walmart, you should go in and complain to the store managers, because they obviously are getting caught up with the anti-gun movement and have decided that they don't want to sell ammunition to us, the law-abiding citizens, because there's some politically incorrect aspect to that. So that's a whole nother issue. So as you're looking at shotguns, there are a few things that you want to consider. One, how will you be deploying the gun, and what is the situation? A shorter barrel around corners as you're moving is easier to deal with than a really long, 28-inch barrel, let's say, that you use for bird hunting. And that's why on my, this is kind of my primary self-defense gun, I actually have a slug barrel on there, which is quite a bit shorter, which allows me more control and more movement than a really long barrel. So that's one thing to consider. Secondly, how comfortable are you running that gun and managing that gun, particularly if the gun malfunctions or doesn't work? Do you understand the safe operations of that gun? So where is the safety? On the Mossberg, it's up on top here. The Remington, it's right here at the trigger. Do you understand where that is and how to manage that? Do you know how to safely load and unload the gun? All those kinds of things really need to be considered. With the Ruger Red Label, do you recognize that when you buy this gun, unless and until you change that safety setup, once I close and I press the trigger, and I put 2 more rounds in and I close the action again, that safety is going to automatically engage. Do I understand that, and do I know how to deal with that, and am I comfortable dealing with that? So, got to know how to run the guns. Then the next thing is the ammunition selection. What kind of ammunition are you going to use, and are you comfortable with where that prints, where it hits, where it patterns? There's a big misunderstanding, in my opinion, about shotguns. People think if I just point it in the general direction, I will hit what I'm aiming at. And that is certainly not true. Shotguns also have to be aimed, and granted, with depending on the type of shot, depending on how you're using it, you're not stopping if you're shooting birds or you're shooting sporting clays. You're obviously moving the gun and you're obviously spreading your shot up there. In a self-defense situation, yes, you may be moving the gun, but generally, if a target is there, multiple targets, you are going to aim the gun. And I can easily show this to you, or you can demonstrate it yourself if you just put a target down range at 10 yards or so, bring the gun up real quick and just pull a shot and see how much of that shot really actually hits the center of the target. Also with ammunition, how does that barrel, or perhaps you have chokes in the gun if it's a skeet gun or something like that, how does that choke affect the pattern of the shot that's coming out? All of those things are considerations. The last thing I would mention too are slugs. Will you shoot slugs? If you are going to shoot slugs, is your gun set up to shoot slugs? Because if it's not, you obviously don't want to shoot slugs through it. Again, if you're shooting a slug barrel, not an issue. With some other kinds of guns, may really blow out the chokes in the end of your gun if it's not designed to shoot. So those are some things to think about. If you have questions, shoot them out to us in the comments section. I'm happy to share what I know or refer you to some other places. Like any firearms, I would highly recommend that if you're going to use this platform for self-defense, that you go out and get some qualified training and you spend some time, shoot several hundred rounds till you really feel comfortable that you could bet your life on this gun. And then if other people in your family maybe are going to be also using this platform, you got to think about that. Is the 12 gauge a comfortable gun for someone maybe who only weighs 110 pounds? Or maybe is a 20 gauge or a 28 gauge a better solution? Is a pump the best way to go, or is an auto loader a better way to go? So those are some considerations again to think about. I'd like to, again, thank you for all your support and all the support we've received with the channel. I encourage you to like the video. The like button is a little thumbs up at the bottom left-hand corner of the video, right down there. And finally, please share with your friends and family. We'd love to have them subscribe or watch videos that are on this channel. And as always, make sure you stay safe.